They'll
I will
send you a couple
say,
crappies and then they'll send you one amazing and they'll be like,
yeah.
oh, this will book her.
Welcome back, friends. Thank you so much for joining me today for another interview as part of my Going Full-Time series. Today I sat down with my friend Macy from Blue Consignment. You can find all her information linked down below in the description. And Macy is a full-time reseller based out of Pittsburgh, and aside from reselling on different platforms, she also owns her own consignment business. We sat down, we talked for a long time, so this is a longer video. If you have work to do, just pop this on in the background, put in your headphones, get it done, and listen to our conversation that we had about going from part-time reselling to full-time reselling and what Macy's full-time reselling business looks like today. Enjoy, and as always, make sure to check out Macy's channel as well.
All right. Hello, Macy. Welcome.
All right,
Thank you so much for being here and talking to me today.
no problem.
So Macy, to anyone who may not know who you are, can you introduce yourself, tell everybody what you do, where they can find you, and any interesting information that relates to your role as a reseller?
Sure. So my name is Macy. I am Blue Consignment on YouTube, and that's also usually my username for most of the platforms that I sell on. I'm on eBay, Poshmark, Mercari, and like a bunch of others, but I primarily sell women's clothing. And on my YouTube channel, I just talk about my reselling business. There is a consignment aspect to it, true to my name. So I sometimes get clothing in from people and resell it for them. And so I have both the thrifting aspect and the consignment aspect. And yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. I have lots of questions, especially about the consignment aspect. But for how long have you been reselling, either part-time or full-time, or when did you start and when did it develop into your full-time job?
So I have been selling part-time forever. I started in high school, part-time reselling, and then I just continued it all the way through college. And then even after I started my full-time job, I was an accountant for a little bit. I was a tax accountant in public accounting, and I did that for like 2.5 years until I decided to go into full-time reselling, just because public accounting can be a lot. It's a little overwhelming. So I was just like really burnt out, and I was like, it's time for a change. And I decided to jump into full-time reselling just because I really loved reselling. I love doing it part-time. I've always been making money off of it. And I'm like, if I dedicated full-time hours to it, I think I'll do okay. I wasn't like completely prepared. I would recommend if anyone was gonna want to go into full-time reselling that they would like get their business to a place where they're actually making the income that they want to see full-time reselling, or at least close to it. And mine was definitely not there. It was just part-time because I didn't have time to work on reselling and my accounting job. Like it wasn't even possible.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just like, I can't do accounting anymore. And I was super stressed out to like apply to new jobs and go through the whole interview process. So my boyfriend encouraged me as well to just like try full-time reselling and see how that goes. And so that's what I did. And I've been doing it ever since. It's been 2 years now, full-time reselling.
That is awesome. And I know that you do have a video on your channel where you talk about your entire journey in a lot more detail. And that video, I will link it either above or below or somewhere, but I found that so helpful, and I just really appreciated you being so transparent with your numbers and with the whole process. And I was just so grateful for you for just telling it like it is, like you were saying, make sure that you are at a point where you're making enough money so you can cover all your costs and such. That's definitely a consideration for me right now as well, because I'm not there and I don't know when I will be, but also the feeling of I cannot really dedicate full-time hours as long as I still have a full-time job.
Right. It's like a catch-22.
Yes. Yeah. And yeah, especially one that is so incredibly intense. I mean, I can only imagine how much you had on your plate when you were still working full-time. So let's just backtrack a little bit. What does being a full-time reseller mean to you? When somebody says, okay, you're a full-time reseller, or when you say that, what exactly does that mean for you? How do you define being a full-time reseller? Because I think a lot of people have different ideas of what it means to be part-time, being full-time, whether it's based on the hours you work or the income you make. So how do you define it for yourself?
I would say if it's your primary way of making money, then you're a full-time reseller. Because I feel like now reselling is my main primary source of income, and then YouTube is my side hustle, because I'm not dedicating as much time to YouTube, but it's still making me money. Whereas before, accounting was my first full-time job, and then reselling was my side hustle, because I would spend any time I wasn't doing accounting work working on reselling if I wasn't, taking vacation or something else fun. But if I wanted to work, it was either one of those two things. And now it's reselling or YouTube. So I consider myself a full-time reseller, even though I do dedicate a good portion of my week to like making YouTube content and stuff.
Yeah. So are those your two main streams of income at this point, reselling and YouTube?
Yeah, absolutely. And with YouTube, it's interesting because it's like, there's different forms of income you can make through YouTube itself. Like I'm making just as much in ad revenue right now as I am in affiliate income.
Wow.
Through like people signing up from videos that I've talked about various things. So it's like two separate income sources through the YouTube. And then reselling still trumps YouTube by a lot because if I dedicate as many hours as I do to YouTube, to reselling, I make like 4 or 5 times more at least, Yeah. So every time that I'm working on YouTube instead of reselling, it definitely feels like an investment. Like, oh, eventually this will pay off, maybe.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, that's
I'm sure you're feeling that right now too.
Yeah, and I still love doing YouTube, but there are definitely days when I'm like, I should not be filming a video right now. I should be doing other things. I really need to list, because if I don't sell anything, I have nothing to talk about on my channel. Right. But yeah, it's definitely, I'm still somewhat in the honeymoon phase, I think, with YouTube. How long have you been on YouTube at this point?
I put out my first video in May 2020. But then I took a like 2 or 3 month break. And then in like August, I started actually like doing YouTube consistently, 2 videos every single week. So I consider my real start date like August, but yeah, so it's been about a year.
Nice. And you recently got monetized, just for context for anyone who may not be watching you, which everybody should, by the way.
Yeah.
So
that was exciting. I got monetized at the very end of the year. So like December, very end of December. So it worked out really well because now I'm like a data nerd, so I can track the whole year how things progress.
For taxes.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I started reselling at the very end of 2019. So I made like $12 in 2019, and then I really started in 2020. So that was nice. I didn't have to worry about taxes in 2020. And then this year it was all very scary.
Oh.
But we're not going to talk about that. I'm sure I did something wrong. But anyway.
Well, you got a taxes friend over here if ever you have questions.
I know. I waited till the last minute and I'm like, well, I'm not going to bother Macy now.
I feel you. I've been wanting to make videos about it, but it's just such a challenging topic. Yeah. And you have to be so careful with how you approach it and stuff. Like, absolutely. Seriously, just the thought about making videos like that, like, makes me not want to do anything, Too overwhelming.
That's why I don't do a whole lot of sit down, like explanatory videos. Because first of all, I do that in my full-time job enough. And then I'm like, I don't know. It stresses me out. It involves so much work. When I can just sit down and film a haul, it's so easy. But,
yeah, I feel you.
But I'm hoping to do a little bit more of that in the future. Maybe when I get monetized and, need to put out more quality content. But even this video series is kind of like, I feel like I'm challenging myself to do new things, and these interviews it's something completely new for me, but it's so fun and I love it, and I really hope that everybody who's watching is getting something out of it too.
Oh my gosh, this would have been so helpful to me. Like, you don't even know how much content I consumed between quitting my accounting job, which was inevitable. It was going to happen no matter if I had a job lined up or not. That just needed to happen. So between that and like figuring out what I wanted to do next, I I was just watching YouTube constantly. Like I was learning everything I could about reselling stuff because like if I do want to go that route, I want to be prepared. I want to like know how full-time resellers are making it happen and stuff. Because like I know how to resell, but I don't know how to do it full time. You know, I don't know how to get enough income to make it sustainable. But YouTube is very helpful in that regard. So videos like this are definitely appreciated.
Awesome. Yeah, and that was kind of my intention because I'm doing this partially for myself, obviously, because I have all these questions and I want to pick everybody's brain. But I do think it's important to put content like that out there because I feel like a lot of people sort of reflect on their journey towards full-time, but I haven't really seen a lot, documenting the process with all the ups and downs. So I'm hoping to be able to do that. And however long it's going to take me, I have no idea. And I put that out there in my intro video. I don't know. There's no, deadline for me. By this time, I want to consider myself full-time. It may not happen this year. We'll see. But so for you, Macy, you mentioned that consignment is an aspect of your business and it's in your name. So how big of a portion of your reselling would you say is coming from consignment, and how did you get started with that? How does that factor in, and what does that look like for you these days?
So I've started picking it up more recently because of the Flip app. I don't know if you've ever looked into it or anything, but it's like you can put lots up for sale on there, and then you can also get lots. So I've tried it both ways. I've been both the person that sells the items and the client that's put items up for sale. And it's really like pushed me back into consignment because I kind of went away from it for a while because whenever you're doing it locally and you're getting it from like friends or friends of friends and people, you're just getting all sorts of stuff and a lot of it's not worth that much, and you're just like, oh my gosh, this is taking so much time and I'm not making very much from it. Whereas if I'm thrifting myself, I'm picking out items I know are going to resell well, or at least, most of them are going to do pretty well. So like the time investment there is just so much more worth it than the consignment items. But with Flip, you are choosing the consignment lots that you're applying for, and then you're setting your consignment rate so you can make it as worthwhile for you as you want to. I'm only applying to lots with things that I enjoy selling and that I don't find in my area. So things like Lululemon and Theory and all these other like higher end brands that resell really well, I just don't find them. Like it's very rare. So it's really fun for me to resell those things. And even though I'm not making as big of a cut as I would make as if I was thrifting the items myself, if I'm not going to find those items anyways, why not sell the things that resell pretty fast and take a smaller cut? It still works at the end of the day because the items are coming to me and I don't have to like spending any time going out and getting the items. So I'm leaning more into it. And especially with like YouTube, I can advertise that I have a consignment business. So if people want to consign directly with me, that's even better because then I don't have to use like the Flip way that they go about consignment, which is kind of rough on sellers because you have to put in your consignment fee before costs. So like the 20% Poshmark fee is coming completely out of my cut. Wow. And that makes it kind of rough.
Yeah.
So if people are consigning with me directly, I can do more of the typical consignment model, which is after costs. Yeah. And then it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. I've looked into the Flip app. I haven't really pulled the plug. I think it's on my phone, but every time I start looking into it, I'm like, I don't want to take it on. I don't want to deal with it. It sounds good, but also I have one person who's consigning with me and it's very, very specific. She gives me all her Lily Pulitzer and that's pretty much it. And I know for the most part it's going to sell. And we just have a very sort of loose agreement. So probably not as professional as what you're doing with your clients. But already I wouldn't say that it stresses me out, but there's definitely that feeling of, okay, I have a responsibility of making a certain amount for this person, but also I'm putting in all the work. And then if it doesn't sell, it's just, for me, I don't think it's something that I would really enjoy. But yeah, this whole aspect of kind of being accountable to another person and then sending them their money, it's not a big part of my business right now, but I'm very intrigued by it. And I've been seeing a lot of people talk about Flip and I'm like, this is interesting, but maybe not for me.
No, I get it. Yeah, there is definitely some extra work involved in like keeping track of all of these different clients' items and stuff. And like checking in with them or sending them payouts every month. And yeah, it definitely takes some extra time. I think that like the more I do it, the better I get at like, especially with flip, choosing lots that are going to be worth the extra effort. But at first, I definitely got some lots that I was like, I probably shouldn't have set a 40% consignment rate on that, because after Poshmark fees, I'm making 20%, and then I'm making like $4 an item.
Yeah.
So I'm getting better with it with time, but yeah, definitely proceed with caution with consignment. It can be rough.
And I think it's a process and a learning curve, just with everything else in reselling. I mean, and it's also, knowing whether or not you want to take that risk. Like I buy thread-up boxes when a lot of other folks have said, I'm not doing it and doing it anymore, and I'm still buying them because I love the thrill of it. But I'm also trying to get smarter with it. I actually just sold my second highest sale was that beautiful dress I got from one of my boxes, and I was so excited. But I'm trying to be smarter with that too. I'm just using my thread-up payouts to buy a box now, and if I don't have enough, I don't get to buy a box. So
yeah, that's a good strategy.
So which platforms are you selling on? I know Poshmark and I think eBay, right? And Mercari too.
Yeah, Poshmark is by far my biggest. Every single month, that is the one that brings me in the most revenue and profit.
Same.
And then eBay is second place, Mercari third. Depop is fourth, but I only sell bras on there. I only sell like boutique items that I'm buying wholesale. And then Curtsy, my own website, and there's another, Facebook Marketplace. I just started on Facebook Marketplace and it has been incredible. I cannot believe it. Like, I didn't think my clothes would sell well on Facebook Marketplace. I'm like, yeah, if you're selling hard goods, sure, but no one's going to want my clothes. And they've been doing so well. I'm like, why haven't I been on this since shipping started?
That is awesome.
Get on this immediately.
I started cross-listing just by lower priced items to Facebook Marketplace because I was very cautious, because I've heard some horror stories. And I immediately had 2 issues. and now I'm just like, okay, do I want to keep investing in this or not? Because I'm already annoyed with it. So I might just let it sit for a little bit, kind of like Mercari in the beginning. And once I figure out, because I think Facebook Marketplace is still trying to figure out what they want to do and how they want to run their business. We'll see. But I hear Facebook Marketplace has been popping off for a lot of people. So I'm willing to give it a shot, but I also kind of want to wait for them to just figure out what they're doing.
That's fair. I get it. Yeah, I mean, it seems like I've only been doing it for like a week, so maybe I'm hyping it up too much, but like, it seems like seasonal items were doing really well over there. So like I listed like tank tops and shorts, and those were the things that were getting the most attention. And then I listed like a Lululemon hoodie. And what I've been doing is pricing things up like pretty significantly, and then putting on accept offers and have like a pretty lower offer. And some people are just buying for like the full asking price. So I priced this hoodie super high and someone just bought it on Facebook Marketplace. Like within 30 minutes of me posting it, I was like, what is happening? What is this platform?
Amazing. Maybe I should put my higher price stuff over there. We'll see.
I mean, I don't know if it could hurt, but I also haven't experienced any issues yet. Like,
so. I feel like there's not a whole lot of transparency and support for sellers, and that kind of worries me a little bit.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I mean, other platforms are similar, really. It's just I know what to expect from them.
I feel like nobody can hurt me worse than eBay at this point. So frustrating every single time.
There's that, yes.
At least once or twice a month, I'm just like, eBay, you're killing me.
Yep, I can relate. Yes. Let's go back to sourcing and thrifting and where you get your inventory from. What is your general approach to sourcing? What kind of items would you say you pick up? Do you feel like you have a curated closet, or do you consider yourself a volume seller? Where do you fall on that spectrum?
So I'm definitely a volume seller. I go to Goodwill on Sundays, which is their dollar day, which means that for just that day, the the tag color that they have on certain items. So like they have 6 or 7 tag colors. So just the oldest one will be on sale for $1. So I'll go through every single thing in Goodwill, except for the top section, because I've given up on that one. And find the dollar day items, or find items that are worth paying up for, worth paying full price for. And then I will walk away with like anywhere from 50 to 100 items.
Wow.
And that's usually all the sourcing that I do for that week, because it takes me forever to list. I'm really slow. So like I just go through those items over the course of the week, and then the next week I'll do the same thing. And that's just kind of been my routine for a while. And it's definitely evolved like over time. I've always been a volume seller just because that's what works best in my area. And I'm not very good at online sourcing for like really high price stuff. So I've just given up on that really. I always shoot myself in the foot whenever I try it. So I'm like, stay in your lane, focus on what you're good at. And that's buying things super cheap and selling them for like $20 to $25. Like if I can make, a bunch of sales every day of these $20 to $25 items that I'm profiting like $15 or $10 to $15 on, then I'm making quite a bit of money. So I guess the sales aren't always 20 to 25. Like if I'm paying $1 for something and I'm able to sell it for 15, then there's a $2.95 fee. I'm making like 11, so they really add up, especially whenever you get tons of things available in your closet. And so I'd use Goodwill, Dollar Days, and then I also have a Goodwill outlet really close to me. It's only 15 minutes away. Nice. And you would not believe it. I didn't know this Goodwill outlet existed. I've been living in Pittsburgh for 4 or 5 years at this point. No, it's like 5 or 6 years at this point. And I did not know this Goodwill outlet existed in my city. I didn't know we had Goodwill outlets in Pittsburgh. And apparently there's 3 now. I just found that out recently. But this one is super close to my house. And the only reason I found out it existed is because I just looked up Goodwill on my phone. And then I went to the closest one, and it was a Goodwill outlet. And I was like, you didn't tell me. It didn't say that on the phone. So I didn't know.
Because it doesn't always say Goodwill outlet. Like they have different names and it depends on the state. So it's like, is this what I think it is? I didn't even know the Goodwill outlet was a thing until I started, reselling and watching like thrifting content on YouTube. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what is this place? That's a whole different conversation for Spins trip. But I mean, if you're paying $1 at your regular Goodwill, which is pretty good, I don't have anything like that around here. I mean, I get lucky and find something for $1 here and there. But yeah, I mean, that's basically a bin's price, right? Depending on what you get. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, and it worked out really well because like during the pandemic, like I didn't want to go to the bins because people just get really close to you at the bins, especially mine. It's just like people are just like sweating over you, and you're like, I don't want to be this close to you right now. Like, do you know what's happening in the world? So
really.
Oh yeah, I mean, I would rather you not sweat over me at any point, but yes. So I just stopped going to the Goodwill outlet for pretty much the past year because I was just like, I can go to regular Goodwills. It's cleaner. I can socially distance better, and I can still get things pretty cheap if I'm just going on Dollar Days and like seeking out those items hardcore,
Yeah.
So that's been my strategy, but I would love to go back to the bins here and like incorporate that back into my routine, because whenever I was doing that, I was doing really well because our bins, while you have to search like crazy and you're going to find crap ton of crap, you will find good things. Like there are gems in there, and I would walk away with at least 2 or 3 things that were like definitely worth my time.
Yeah.
Like sorting through all that other stuff. So I wish I could incorporate that back in, but right now I have so much consignment stuff I'm trying to get listed, so it's going to take me a few more weeks before I can get back there.
Yeah. I'm so lucky that my bins are really fairly civilized, at least every time I've gone. I mean, I witnessed an altercation once, maybe. Like I stay away from, when new bins roll out, I'm like, I'm not going to jump into that. I will not fight somebody over something. That's kind of my philosophy, and I've been okay with that. But I definitely agree. The first time I went back when we were still, I mean, when lockdown first kind of ended and we could go back, it was very bizarre. I'm like, okay, people are not staying as far away from me as I would like, but they were also not all up in my business. So it was kind of okay. But yeah, I can definitely relate to that. It's a strange place.
I had one lady in particular, she was wearing her mask like around her neck. And I was like, oh, I gotta stay away from her. So I'm like minding my business somewhere else. And she starts coming up to me and I'm like, oh no, oh no, oh no. And then she comes up like this close to me. She's like, you are so pretty. You are so tall. Oh my God. I'm like, lady.
I was like, what she was doing though.
If I saw you over there without your mask on, you would come and talk to me because this is what happens.
She probably knew you were going to be uncomfortable, and she's like, "Okay, I'm gonna sneak over there and grab her spot." That's what I always think. Like, are you coming so close to me because you want me to move? Because
that's that might be their strategy.
yeah, I swear it's very weird what people come up with at the band. So Macy, earlier you mentioned that one of the reasons why you wanted to transition to full-time reselling was being burned out in your full-time job. So now that you're a full-time reseller and you've been doing that for a while, can you talk more about what your sort of your daily routine looks like? Do you put yourself on a schedule, or is it really more like, okay, if I feel like listing today, I'll list, and if I don't, I don't? How does sort of the freedom of being a full-time reseller, how does that interact with, holding yourself accountable and making sure that you stay on task?
I'm really bad in this aspect. I wish I was better. I know that if I had like a set routine where I woke up at a certain time every day and then I worked until a certain time every day and I did similar things every day, that I would be much more successful. But that's just not how I operate unless someone's forcing me to. Like in accounting, you had to show up, by 8:30 and then you had to work until whenever you were done. But now I'm not, no one's requiring me to wake up in the morning, and I'm not a morning person. So I let myself just kind of sleep in until whenever I feel like waking up. And then I do kind of have a routine for my day. Like I'll get shipping done. That's the first thing that I do. And I'll update my master spreadsheet with like everything that's sold and put in the sold information and stuff. And then I'll go through and like, if I have anything to list that I've already prepped the day before, like took photographs or whatever, I'll go through my bin. I have a bin over here that just has things like already inventoried in their bag with like a little inventory sticker. So I'll grab the item and I'll go into Vendu and I'll put the item up on Poshmark. Then I have a VA that cross lists for me to eBay, and then they prepare Mercari for me, but they can't actually list because she's based in the Philippines and they don't have Mercari in the Philippines. So I have to actually list those items, but she does list eBay for me. And so I'll do that, and then I will usually prepare whatever I need to get photographed and then do that. And then, throughout the day, because I'm home, there's always like chores and stuff that like creep into my day. And I'm like, oh, I should wash the dishes. Oh, I should do the laundry. And then like all of a sudden it's like 6 p.m. and you're like, I got nothing done. Yeah, I wish I was better at it, but that's kind of how my days end up going most of the time. So like the listing challenge was really healthy for me because it required me to kind of keep a more strict schedule of listing like I was like telling my boyfriend, like, you gotta make dinner tonight because I have to get these listings up, that I have to get this video edited because it has to come out tomorrow. And like, so I was able to be really a lot more structured. And then without that, I've just gone right back to being completely like, oh, let me do this, all this other stuff throughout my day, or like pull up a YouTube video and not get distracted by that, So it really helps if you can find something to like keep you accountable, because unless you're really strict with yourself, it's hard being the master of your own day and still doing everything you need to do.
And I hear you about the dishes and the laundry, and especially laundry. I feel like because we're dealing with clothing all the time, I don't want to do the laundry for my family. It's like the worst, and it's there. And then by the time I finally fold one basket, I already have another one that needs to be washed. And I'm like, does it ever end? I'm tired of clothing. And
I
these
know
are
it's
not cute, you know, these are not the cute clothes that I'm selling.
yeah, exactly. I let mine pile up for so long. It's bad. I only do it whenever I'm like, oh, I'm out of underwear. Now's the time. Time to do 10 loads of laundry.
I'm like, why does my child have nothing to wear? Oh, that's why. So yeah, I feel like with, you know, being disciplined and putting yourself on a schedule, I think there's really something to be said for that. But at the same time, I feel like a lot of people are trying to get out of their previous jobs because they want that freedom of reselling and they want to enjoy it. And I think putting yourself on a schedule, not for everybody, but for some people might take the fun out of it a little bit. And I know there are some folks, especially if you have a family, you know, you want to schedule in time to spend with them, and then make sure that, you know, when you're reselling, you're doing that task, and then when you're spending time with your family, you want to be present with them. And I think it's really important in that regard. But I do think that that freedom that you can say, hey, today I'm just going to sleep in and I'm going to list, you know, 2 items instead of 20, which I don't know how you did that. Not only the listing, but also then editing and filming and editing the video on top of it. How does she do it? Does she sleep? Like, is Macy getting any sleep right now? For anyone who does not know this, Macy did a 20 listings a day for 21 days, right? In 2021 challenge to herself, just because.
Yeah.
And I watched it. I watched the whole thing and I'm like, how are you doing this for 3 weeks?
Yeah, I mean, by the end, I was like really struggling. Like I had like piles of clothing that wasn't inventoried. I wasn't measuring stuff. I wasn't putting in descriptions for stuff. Like I was just cutting out like anything I could to make it take less time. At first I was like really good with it, but you know, eventually you get tired of it. So, and then it was like I was releasing videos every other day instead of every day.
Yeah.
I managed to get to the end of it before the end of the month, but it was definitely a bit of a struggle. And the only reason I was able to do it is because my boyfriend took over most of the chores, like mainly cooking. Like for some reason, cooking for me, whenever I have to cook, it's like a 3 hour, like it takes over my brain. I have to think about everything involved with it. And then, you know, you sit down, you eat and you watch something and that takes like an hour. So like the cooking and dinner portion of the day really takes away a lot for me. But without that, I was able to like completely focus and like, you know, I was very motivated because I have an audience of people that are expecting me to put up videos. And for some reason, that kind of like expectation on me is very motivating. So I'm always looking for other ways to like put expectations on myself because I'm not good at just self putting on expectations, I guess.
Yeah, because I mean, once you're your own boss, you know, and you don't put those expectations and like deadlines on yourself, I think it's really helpful to participate in challenges like that. I do it every once in a while, and then I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I don't have to do it past this week.
Yeah.
But I think it's really helpful, and you can always learn something from it, and maybe even just, you know, maybe I should put less effort into this aspect because it's just taking too long, and maybe I can streamline it. And I think there's really something to be said for that. So if nothing else, if you get that out of it, plus, you know, maybe more sales because you were listing more. Did you find that you were making more sales because you were listing a lot more consistently?
Yeah. So it was delayed because reselling is very much delayed gratification. Like you'll put in the work, but you won't actually see the results, I would say, for a full month later. Like you'll see some results trickle in within like, you know, the first week or the first 3 weeks, whatever. But I would say once the month hits, that's when you actually start seeing the results of the work that you put in. So like over the past 2 weeks, I've been having really good sales. And I haven't been putting up a ton of listings over the past 2 weeks because I'm tired of listing from the listing challenge. So I've slowed down listing a lot, and I'm really trying to get it back up because I don't want to do that. But I'm still having really good sales, and I'm very confident that it's because I put in so much work the prior month, and it's just a delayed effect from that. So it's interesting. There's a lot of factors that play into why sales can be good or bad during a specific period of time.
I can definitely see that. And then there are also so many external factors where I'm always like, well, it's just what it is right now. Like my last week was horrible and I had one good sale, which saved the entire week, but I haven't filmed my what sold video yet, but I was doing my numbers and I'm like, ooh, this would have been really, really bad without that one sale. But yeah.
I definitely have weeks like that. I feel you. I like part of the reason why I had to stop doing YouTube for a few weeks is because I hadn't been thrifting between like November and February because I was trying to be like super safe during that time, and cases were just so high. So I decided not to do any thrifting during that time. And then I was like really sad because like the best part of reselling is going out and thrifting and like getting things to resell. For most people, at least for me, it definitely is.
Yeah.
And so like I was just like really bummed out and like I wasn't motivated to do anything. So come March, I was finally able to go back out and thrift. And then I was like, oh, all into reselling. I was like, oh my gosh, I have stuff to list. So all I wanted to do every day was focus on reselling stuff and get my numbers back up to what I'm used to seeing, especially because, you know, I do have bills to pay and stuff. Like it's kind of important to make money. Part of the reason I was even able to go to like leave accounting and go in full time is because I'm just really careful with savings and I don't really spend my money on anything unless I have to. So like I had a ton in savings after leaving my job. I was like, I don't have to really worry about it for a while. And then I also share a house with my boyfriend, so we split bills there. And so everything's just super cheap. So I knew that even if it took me a while to get into like the full groove of things, full-time reselling, that I would be okay. And now, you know, it's like 2 years later, and I did a lot better this past year than I did the first year that I did full-time reselling. And a lot of it just plays into like you building up your Poshmark closet and stuff to the point where people can come in and like bundle a bunch of stuff, and you just get really good at figuring out what sells fast, like what to pick up that's going to flip fairly quickly and make you money. So it took me a while to like get to that point, but it like all started going downhill whenever I couldn't thrift anymore. And so as soon as I was able to get back into it, that's all I wanted to do. And it kind of goes back and forth for me with reselling and YouTube. It's like I'm either motivated to do reselling or I'm motivated to do YouTube. It's pretty tough to do both at the same time for me.
Yeah.
Trying.
I hear that. I have days, like the other day I went thrifting and I'm like, oh, this is such good stuff, I should film a haul. And I'm like, no, Veronika, you should sit down and get this listed so you can make money, because you have enough content planned right now. You need to also find time to film that. And so I didn't film the haul. So even though hauls are popular, but I think it's an interesting balance for sure. But if you have a channel about reselling, then you need to invest time in the reselling so you have content to put out there. And I think it's really important not to lose sight of that. How big is your inventory at any given time?
Right now it's 674 items. And I can tell you the exact number because I look at it every single day on Vendu and eBay and stuff. But yeah, I just pulled some items that I need to like take down. That was my most recent video, was just going through and pulling stale items that I've had for over a year. I don't like to keep items up for over a year because you just get tired of looking at them.
Yeah. I feel like I need to do that again. I did it a while ago and that video did really well too. And I'm like, oh, well, two birds, one stone. But I haven't felt like going through all these bins back there, but I also need to make room. I'm trying to figure out what I want to do with it because I don't feel like going to Plato's and Clothes Mentor. I talked to somebody about it and I'm like, you know what? I just feel so rejected by them because they reject my clothes, which is understandable because nobody wants to buy them on Poshmark either. But I'm just like, I'd rather send them to ThredUp and then it's like delayed rejection and I can deal with it because I already forgot about it. It's just going there and then you walk back out with your little basket and it's still half full. And I'm like, well, that sucked.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I was always
$5 and I still have all this crap.
Yep. I felt the same way. Whenever I was younger, I would take things to Plato's Closet. Like before, I mean, I was reselling, but it was like, I wasn't that into it, I was more just doing it for fun. So like, I would still take things to Plato's Closet and stuff and be like, I would accept the payouts, but I would always have in the back of my mind, like, should have I just sold that myself? Because this seems really low.
I haven't had much luck with it. I tried the bins, the pounds to Plato's thing. It was a wash basically for me. You already mentioned that you have a VA and you use Vendu, and then also that you live with your boyfriend and that he's being supportive. But just can you say more about what your support system looks like, and what kind of help you have with your business, both paid and unpaid, and how you're managing all your tasks and who supports you in that?
Yeah. So I have two VAs.
Mm-hmm.
One of the VAs shares my Poshmark closet every day, 4 times a day. And that's really helpful because I just pay him one time a month and then I don't have to think about it and it just happens, And I found him on Fiverr and I've probably been using him for like the past 2 years or maybe a little bit less, but I've just never had any problems. So like I just keep using them and that's super helpful because that's a task that like can be just so draining and you just don't want to do.
Yeah.
And whenever you have someone doing it for you consistently, like the sales really reflect that because I know every time he's sharing my closet, I can see the interactions coming in from likes and whatever. And whenever he doesn't do it for whatever reason at some point, I know because like it's like, oh, why have I not had any likes today? I see what happened. Yeah, so that's one. And then the other one is the VA that I use to help me cross list. He used to help me list, and I've had different VAs over the past couple years. Like initially, whenever I first got my listing VA, I got her late 2019. So I've been reselling for like 8 months or full-time reselling for 8 months. And I was like, I'm really struggling to get items listed. Like I need something to hold me accountable. So what I did was I hired a VA that I told her I'm going to send you 25 item photos every day. So I had to put on myself the responsibility of taking those photographs of 25 items so that I could give her the photographs. And I also prepared a spreadsheet with like the brand names that were lit in the photographs, the item descriptions, the price, like literally everything she would need in order to list on Poshmark because she didn't know what she was doing. Like I tried just giving her photos, but she was not able to like actually build listings by herself. So I gave her everything she needed in spreadsheet form. And then she just went in and actually built the listings for me by putting the photos into Poshmark, putting the information into the various sections and listing it. So I would wake up every morning to 25 new listings in my closet. And that was very good for me because I felt very motivated because I had this individual that I told I would give her a certain amount every day, and I was just doing that. And I did that for like 3 months, and it really like reflected in my sales. The best sales month I've ever had, I think even to date, was February 2020. So right before everything went to crap, I had my best sales month ever, and that was because I had listed so much between November, December, and January. And it all like caught up in, slowly built up to where February was just like crazy. And then whenever everything happened, I was like, okay, I can't do 25 listings anymore because I can't actually source enough stuff to give to you to list. And I was like going to the bins at this point. So and that's like how I could get so much stuff to list really quickly. So I let her go. I'm like, I'll put you on pause for like a couple of months, and then nothing was getting better. So I was like, okay, forget it. I can't do any, like, I'll just do it myself for a while until like things go back to normal. And so a couple months go by, and then I got my second VA, which I still have to this day, who actually can list items. But the problem is, so I would give her pictures and she would build listings for me on Poshmark. One is a little bit more expensive because she was taking a lot more time than my other VA because she was actually like building the listings. She was putting in the information, coming up with the titles and descriptions and whatnot, and I wasn't doing that part. And two, I would still have to go in and review the listings. So she was building them on Vendu at this point, not directly just putting it into Poshmark. And so I would go in before and post it myself. And I found myself spending all this time like revising the title, revising the descriptions. And I'm like, how much time is this actually saving me? Is it worth the cost? So I kind of like, I changed it up because I was talking to my friends about this too, who I also got into getting VAs to help them cross list and list and stuff. And my one friend, Chelsea, she was telling me about how she uses her VA to just cross list for her. She's like, I just build the listings in Poshmark and then they cross list it for me. And that's working really well because I don't have to like review, they're like, whenever it comes to eBay, you can just copy and paste whatever you need to, and like as long as they can figure out style keywords and stuff, it's fine. So that's what I decided to do, and that's what I've been doing ever since. I build on Poshmark and then my VA cross list to eBay and Mercari, and I've just been putting things directly on a Facebook Marketplace myself recently, and I'll probably just keep doing that until I feel comfortable having my VA do it if I feel like it's worth it for her to take on that one as well. So that, for business wise, those are my two like support systems. It's not as motivating anymore because I'm not holding myself to a strict like I need to do this many listings because this person's relying on me. It's more like, hey VA, I have listings for you, here's how many I have. And then outside of that support system is definitely my boyfriend. That's really the only other person that I have like around me, like encouraging me or like helping me with whatever. It's never anything business wise. He doesn't really care about reselling. He's like, oh, you do your thing, you know. But like chores wise or whatever, I can kind of pass some things off to him, and especially with like bills and stuff, because he's a software developer. So like whenever, he actually hasn't been working over the past year, he's been going back to school. So we've just been living off of his savings and my savings and like my working and stuff. It's been interesting. It's been an interesting year. Yeah, so it's like nothing's bad or anything, but like that's always been helpful, just having him to like share costs with and stuff. Yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of like support I have around me.
Awesome. And so, of course, you have a YouTube channel. We've talked about that. But aside from that, how important do you feel like is social media to you and your business? Does it play a huge role? Because a lot of people have like huge presence on Instagram and such and TikTok and wherever. I don't. But what does that look like for you?
So I have an Instagram, but I don't really use it too much. It's just never really a platform that I got very interested in. Like I find myself wanting to put myself out there on platforms that I personally use a lot, and YouTube is a platform that I'm constantly like consuming content on and stuff. So I mean, I've wanted to be a YouTuber since like YouTube first started. Like I was in middle school, like I want to be a YouTuber someday. And I just never had the confidence to like actually put myself in front of a camera and do it. I've tried many times actually over the years to start like a reselling channel or something, and I could never do it. And so finally, like during the pandemic, I had time, I wasn't sourcing, I was just like, okay, it's time, I'm gonna start this thing. And I forced myself in front of a camera over there, and I'm like, and that's my boyfriend's camera, so he was nice enough to let me use his camera for filming. It's a very nice camera, it's 4K, it's fancy. And I was so nervous
on, and it's horrible.
Oh, really? Hey, it works.
Yeah.
I forced myself in front of the camera, and I was so nervous for the first few videos. Like you'll hear my voice shake, and I wish that like my full-time reseller story wasn't like the third video I ever filmed, because like I just cringed so hard watching that one back. I'm like, why?
It's not noticeable. All I took away from that video was all the good information you put out there. So don't even worry about it. It's a solid video.
Thank you. But yeah, eventually I got better at it. I'm still not really that great at public speaking in general. And that's part of the reason why it was so hard at first to like get in front of the camera, because I knew that there was this whole audience that would be watching me on the other side. And it was just as tough as standing in front of a crowd and speaking for me, especially at first. Now it's like, whatever. Yeah. But it definitely takes some getting used to at first.
Yeah, I try not to think about it. And then sometimes I look at like my first video, for some reason, my very first video, which has horrible audio, like it's super low. You need to crank it up all the way. And if I ever get monetized, I feel like I cannot put ads on that because it's just going to blast people's ears out. But that video has so many views, and I try not to think about how many people have watched this, because then I'm just like, I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think at some point you just need to like switch that off and just be like, okay, I'm putting myself out there and I need to be okay with that. And if not, then I'll stop. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I agree with
Um,
Instagram. I didn't really start using Instagram until I started reselling. I always had an account and I never used it. So my private account just became my reselling account. And even
mhm.
now I kind of pop on, I advertise my latest video, I post a shipping picture, and then I pop back off. And then people are asking me about, drama or this or that. And I'm like, I have no idea because I'm not on there as much.
Yeah. So there's a lot of drama on Instagram that I'm glad I'm not a part of.
Yeah, nobody needs the drama. What are some goals that you had set out to accomplish for your business that you're really proud of, that you're really happy with? And then also, what are some goals and just things that you have in mind, maybe for the next few months, for the next year, anything specific that you're working towards that you can share?
So past goals that I'm proud of. The first time that I had a $3,000 profit month, I was like, oh yeah, this is what I need right here. I'm rolling in the money. Because like that was enough to like pay my bills,
Mm-hmm.
put money into my retirement IRA, and still have money left over to like go out or do whatever I wanted to do and like feel comfortable, Whenever it's closer to 2,000 or like 1,000, I'm like, get that back up. I wish it could always
Sale
be
real quick.
yeah. I wish that it could always be a $3,000 profit month. But the first time that happened, I was super proud of myself because I put in a lot of work and, delayed gratification. Like you're going to put in a lot of work before it actually starts showing up, especially full time. You're just like, I'm spending every day doing this. What's happening? But eventually it pays off. And then I would say starting YouTube was definitely a big like goal of mine that was tough for me to conquer. So I'm very proud of myself for doing that, and also like staying consistent with it at least between August and when I got monetized, because if I hadn't stayed consistent with it during that time period, I wouldn't have gotten monetized so fast. I would have probably still been working on it, because like consistency is just by far like the number one thing that you need. That and like putting out consistent, like the same type of videos so that people can latch on to something that they enjoy watching and find more of it. And then you get all those watch hours from people that are watching the same type of video over and over again. So those two are my wins over the past like 2 years. And then going forward, something that I've been wanting to do for a little while now, but just haven't been able to. I actually attempted it last summer and I got somebody, but it didn't end up working out. And that's getting a photographer.
Mm-hmm.
So like I can only do so much work during a day, obviously. And having VAs are great, but they can't photograph for you. So what I really need is a photographer so that I can get more photos to give to my VA and maybe have her start listing again, or get another VA that is even better at listing and then have them list it. So that's something that I want to do. I tried to do it last year. I got somebody, I trained her. She quit after one session with bags. She's like, "Oh, this is a lot of work. Never mind."
Yeah, that's why you need somebody.
It was so sad. But also not like that surprising, because it's a lot more work than it sounds. On paper, it's like, oh, I have to take a couple photographs and I make a lot of money. All right, cool. And then you actually do it and you're like, this takes forever. And something that I don't want to do is pay by the hour, because I'm really afraid that if I pay by the hour, that someone's just going to take forever to take all these photographs. And then eventually they might get faster at it. But if I'm paying by item instead of by hour, then I know my costs. I know what my costs are going to be, and that's a lot safer for me than doing it by the hour. So that's what I want to do. I just I have to find somebody else, and I have to figure out the right platform to put the job posting out there on, and I have to find somebody that I'm willing to have come to my house, or that I'm willing to meet up with them, somebody that I can trust a little bit, because it's not, it's weird having random people take your clothing, and you have to trust them a little bit, So luckily the photographer did give me back the clothing that I gave her.
Oh, good.
But I'm trying to make it as sweet of a deal as I can. I'm trying to think of maybe like a stay-at-home mom or something, like I could drop the clothes off.
Yep.
She could photograph, I could pick the clothes up, give her new stuff, and just have like this constant rotation.
Yeah.
And then she could maybe upload the photos directly into Vendu for me, and then they can go directly to my VA. And then I just have this whole system in the background, just like doing its thing, you know?
And all you get to do is thrift and make sales and collect money.
Exactly.
I mean, that is the dream. Honestly, I envy anyone who has like a family member that maybe they're paying a little bit, but that they can just, you take the photographs and then they just appear, because I think it can be such just a block really when you, I mean, I'm looking over at my rack with all the clothes I need to photograph, and then I have more on this table behind me, and I'm like, oh, it's going to take forever. And I've just been trying to just do as much as you can. If you take pictures of 10 items, that's enough, because that's listings for 2 days, because I'm only listing like 5 new items every day right now. But yeah, it's just overwhelming. And then once I get started, it's usually okay. It's just, there's definitely that blockage there where I'm like, it's a bottleneck, right? You don't always want to do it, and you don't always want to measure. And then it's if I could have somebody steam photograph and measure for me, I'm okay with listing, because I can sit wherever, I can do whatever, I can watch YouTube. But yeah, the photographing and the measuring and the steaming, sometimes it just takes so much time.
I definitely feel you with like getting overwhelmed by things too. Same thing happens with YouTube sometimes. Like I put too much on my plate. I'm like, oh, I'll do this and this and this, and then I just get overwhelmed, and then I find myself not wanting to do anything because I'm like, it's too much. I don't know what to focus on right now.
With YouTube, the editing is just, I mean, I just edited a vlog that went up today as we're recording that, and it was just so many little clips and so much, and I get very like OCD about these things, and it's still not what I want it to be, but it's okay. Like, I'm happy putting it out there. It just takes so much time, because I'm like, well, if I'm putting this together, I want it to look somewhat decent, and I want to have nice music, and it's a lot. And I feel like all I've done today is edit this vlog, which is not true. I did get some listing done, but it takes up a lot of time, like YouTube and reselling in general. And what you said about, the person that was taking pictures, realizing that it's a job. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. They think we just grab something, out of a bin, toss it on the floor, take a picture, and then make money off of it. And I'm like, all the time that goes into it. And I know you were the only person, as far as I know, who accepted my little challenge, my hourly challenge, and actually tracked your time and figured out how much you make per hour. But yeah, once I did that, I was like, man, that's a lot of time that goes into every single item that I list. So every time I make a sale, and it's usually like a super old item, and I'm only making like $2 on it, I'm like, this kind of stinks, because
not worth the time.
That brings my salary way down. So yeah, I definitely feel that it's a lot of work, and I don't think people outside of our community know that.
Right. Yeah. It's hard to think about, because it's so split up into all these little tasks that unless you're actually like focusing on how much time you take for each individual thing, you're like, well, it's not that much time, and then you're like, where did the day go? I thought I was working on stuff, and I didn't get that much done. It feels like.
Yeah, it's like I'm always like, it takes me 2 minutes to do that, and then when I actually tracked it, I was like, no, it doesn't. With the bins, like, oh, this weighs nothing, and I'm like, funny how I have a whole cart of things that weigh nothing, but yet I paid $60.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that is why, like, so many people that do this full time talk about like how important it is to source stuff that's going to give you a certain amount of profit, because they're like, time per item, like it's not worth your time, even though you can make money off of it. You got to think about how much time it's going to take to actually get it listed and sold and everything, because otherwise you'll spend all your time, like I was whenever I first started doing this full time, listing a bunch of stuff that's not going to make you a full-time income.
When I look back in the very beginning, not when I first started, but maybe like 2 weeks into it, I started doing the flat lace with all the, arrangements around it. And it took so much time. And now I look back at that and I'm like, were you crazy? Like, I mean, I had like maybe 50 listings at the time. Now I have close to 1,000. If I did that for every single listing, I wouldn't get anything done, and I wouldn't make any money because I wouldn't be able to list anything. And the photos still look like crap. So it's such a learning curve though. And it's just things that you figure out along the way. But also I wish I could only pick up items that will make me, I don't know, at least $25 after all fees and everything, but it's just not realistic for me. And every once in a while I find those items and I'm super excited, but then I sit on them for, half a year. Whereas if I go to the bins and I pick up my Fashion Nova, which is my favorite example because I feel like I'm the only person who actually sells that stuff, but it consistently makes me like 10, $12 and it's usually from the bins and it usually doesn't sit for long. So I'm like, that's okay.
I feel you.
I'm saving it, I'm saving the fast fashion, and if people want it, then that's cool with me. But yeah, it's such a weird kind of like in between space for me sometimes where I'm like, I want to save all these clothes, but I also want to make money and I don't want to put all my time into, to saving them. And you just have to really fine tune your sourcing and what's worth it for you at the end of the day. And it's hard.
It is. It's definitely a balancing act because you can't be too strict either, because otherwise you'll walk away with like 3 things and then you won't have enough sales coming in to make you money either. So like even the small sales do add up over the course of a week or a month, Like if I didn't have all the little sales, like the boutique items that I have that I buy wholesale, they don't make me very much money. But since I just kind of have them up and available, I make a few bucks here, a few bucks there, and like they're constantly like a stream of income coming in through Poshmark or Depop, wherever. And those little sales, I know whenever I haven't had a lot of those little sales throughout the week, because it's like, why has this week been kind of like bad? Oh, it's because I only sold 2 bras this week. I usually sell like 10 or 12 of them. That's weird. Yeah. So the little sales add up too.
Yeah, that's true. Little sales and also just fast flips. So if it flips fast, I'm like, yeah, I'll take a $30 offer on an item that I had maybe listed for $50. If it comes in within the same day, I'm like, sure, take it. Yeah. That was easy.
That's a really good point. I'm willing to pick up things that I know will sell for less if I know that they'll sell within like the month. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Macy, I have one more question for you, and then I'll let you go. Is there anything that you feel like is really important, is a really important part of our business, or maybe of being a part-time or a full-time reseller, that you feel like is not being talked about enough in our community, and that you feel like we should be talking about more?
I feel like the only thing is that like whenever you're consuming content about reselling, whether it be through like YouTube or Instagram or whatever, you have so many different resellers telling you so many different things that they do to make money. And so you end up trying a lot of different things. And I know that I feel like I've wasted a lot of time trying a lot of different things that didn't end up working for me, instead of just focusing on the things that do work for me. So I feel like even if it's not something that like you've heard a lot of people talk about or whatever, if you find a strategy that works for you for reselling, whether it's like things that people approve or disapprove of, or if it's brands that people like to sell or they tell you never to pick up or whatever it is, like if it's making you money, just focus on it. I wish I would have just focused on picking up my dollar day items and reselling, making those $10 to $15 profit sales, and like just focused on it instead of like trying to do a ton of retail arbitrage or trying to source from like thrift shops that I've never been to or whatever. Like I feel like I spent a lot of time trying different things that I kind of know in the back of my mind this is probably a waste of time, but I'm doing it anyways. And it's different if it's for like a video and I'm just like trying it out to see what happens. But if I'm like wasting my time doing something, that's when I start to feel a little like, just focus on what you're good at, because that's what's important.
I definitely hear that. And I think the pandemic certainly had something to do with that as well. Just the ways in which we all tried to source, and I think a lot of us just got carried away buying from, the thrift groups on Facebook, and those items performed horribly for me.
Oh my gosh. I only did that once, and I'm still selling, like I just, in this last What Sold video that I made, I sold one of those items and I bought it like close to a year ago at this point.
I don't even know. I think at this point I may have like 1 or 2 items still left, but most of it got sent to ThreadUp, or I sold it on eBay for like $5 and I didn't make any money. But also, yeah, every time I find myself going on ThreadUp on the outlet section and just browsing through stuff, like after a while I'm like, what are you doing? This is, this is not going to do well for you. I mean, we've been over this. Get off the phone and get listing, because it also, we always think, okay, it doesn't take as much time and it gets delivered to our door. But if you're spending hours, looking for inventory online, you're also spending that time, and you do it from your, your desk or your couch. So I'm trying not to do that anymore. I'll still do the ThreadUp boxes because it's kind of fun. And so far, I mean, my last few have been really good. So I'm like, okay.
That's what keeps you in.
I mean, they know what they're doing. I got to hand it to them. And
they'll send you a couple crappies and then they'll send you one amazing and they'll be like, oh, this will book her.
Yeah, I'm kind of cured from the Goodwill blue boxes because I had a few crappy ones and I'm like, okay, we've got that out of our system. Same with some other boxes that I've unboxed, which people have probably seen and that shall not be named. But with ThreadUp, they've been giving me at least like one really good item, if not more, in the past few boxes. And plus, I mean, I gotta say it, ThreadUp on YouTube, like ThreadUp content, it always performs so well. And I'm like, well, if people want to see that, then I mean, I'm not buying the boxes just for YouTube, but it's kind of a nice, it's like 2 for the price of 1. So
yeah, I like your videos, so I'll watch whatever you're unboxing.
Yeah, it's just, I just kind of like to share it. And sometimes it's really depressing, but sometimes I'm like, I'm so happy I filmed this because just that excitement, I'm glad I get to, experience that again when I edit it. But there have definitely been some boxes where I'm like, why am I filming this? This is sad. This is going to be a sad video. But I think it's important just to put that out there too, because I know I watch a lot of these unboxings because I want to get a general idea of what people are getting before I put my money anywhere. So I think it's all good. All right, Macy, anything else you would like to share? Maybe remind everybody where they can find you. Obviously, I will put it all in the description down below as well, but just final thoughts on full-time reselling?
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot less stressful than a lot of other jobs, especially my prior job in public accounting. I can confidently say that I'm way less stressed than I was back then, even though it's a lot of work, and don't underestimate the amount of work that it's going to take. Like, you're going to have to put in the hours if you actually want to make some money. But it's also like the more effort you put in, the more you get out. So like, you kind of know whenever you're not making a ton of sales and stuff, it's because like you probably didn't put in enough effort a month ago. Remember, it's always a month delayed. So whatever you did the prior month is going to affect you now. But I mean, I love this job. I'll keep doing it until I can't do it for whatever reason anymore. It's way better than anything else that I've done, especially since starting YouTube. Because like the biggest thing with starting YouTube was that I wanted to make reseller friends. That was like my main objective, not making money. It was just, I want to make reseller friends because I had coworker friends at my old job, and that was like the only reason I was still there, like for as long as I was, because I didn't want to lose that group of coworkers that I had gotten so close to and spent so much time with and had so much fun with at happy hours or whatever else. So like, whenever I first started full-time reselling, I was like super lonely because you're doing this job by yourself. So luckily with starting YouTube, I was able to actually meet a lot of people that do the same thing that I do, and then I have like a little text group now of like reseller people that do the exact same that I do, and they also are on YouTube and stuff. So we have so much to talk about, like every time we have a bad buy or something, we can vent to each other, and it's so much fun, and it's good to have people to like bounce ideas off of, or like if you're thinking about a YouTube video concept or you want to have a buddy to do a collaboration with or whatever, it's just really, really nice. So if ever you do start YouTube, make sure to put yourself out there in the comment section to like make those connections. I love it. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm Blue Consignment. You can find me at blueconsignment.com. It has all my links to every platform that I sell on, and I also put clothes for sale up on there. And I'm working on getting more clothes for sale up on there. It's not a Shopify store. Eventually, I probably will switch it over to a Shopify store to make things easier. Because I'm assuming eventually Vendu will add that as a cross-listing option. So I'm manually putting in all the items that I put on there. So I'm really hoping eventually I'll sell things on there. But it's been fun to like make that website look good and like have all the information on it and stuff.
I bet it's also just a great creative outlet. And that's also something that I just love about reselling, but also YouTube. It's a great sort of creative outlet, and it just kind of activates. I mean, at least for me, it's just a completely different area of my brain. So I love that. And I 100% agree with, making reseller friends being a big motivation. I was always hanging out in, the chats on the premieres and lives. And I think once I started actually creating my channel and people could put a face to, my name, I made a lot more connections with people, and they've become really good friends. And yeah, like you, I have people that I talk to almost on a daily basis, and it's just nice because I don't have anyone in my real life to talk about these things. Like my husband doesn't care what I thrifted, so
exactly. You just want somebody that knows what you're doing and is actually interested in what you have to say about this stuff.
Yeah, because I think we do need, that idea of having coworkers almost. So I think it's really, YouTube is really great for that. And just finding your people more so than, Facebook groups and such, which can be nice too. But YouTube is really helpful because you actually, get to look at each other and talk to each other, and you get to do this, which was super fun. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Macy. Yeah, thank you so much for agreeing. I'm so excited to do all these interviews and getting to talk to all kinds of different folks in the reselling business, and full-time, part-time, almost full-time. And it's such an interesting journey, and I'm glad that I got to hear more from you and your thoughts on that. And I'm sure everybody who's watching got something out of it. So everybody who's watching who's not subscribed to Macy yet, absolutely you need to. She has lots of great content out there, lots of amazing videos that I keep sharing all over the place. You have some really awesome evergreen videos that I will link down below as well. So
yeah, you are always so supportive. I really appreciate it.
Your Vendu versus List Perfectly video, I still share that all the time. Every time I see somebody ask, I'm like, here, watch this. It'll answer all of your questions.
Thank you. That means a lot. That is by far like my highest affiliate income thing. So it means more than you know.
Honestly, I can tell how much work went into that video, and you deserve all the good that's coming from that video alone. It's really great.
Thank you.
All right, Macy. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. And yeah, good luck with all your endeavors. And I look forward to watching more of you on YouTube.
Thanks.
Thank you.